COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't even have a snack. Hey, coronavirus, I want my life back.
Well, I just saw one of the comments there from Kelly saying, hello, family. So I think that's a great way to start every show. Hello, family. Hello, everybody. Hello, fellow isolators. It is Friday, and we have a special show today that we are dedicating there to our first Kelly responders, saying hello, and family, healthcare workers, those in the front line, and we know that things have changed. So much has changed, hasn't it? We talk about it every day. It's changed. Shopping has changed. Work has changed. School has changed. One thing, though, has not changed, and that is when we need help, the people we call for help are still there. We call 911. We expect them to answer. They do answer. And the lights and siren come blaring down the street, don't they? We break a leg. We go to the hospital. We expect our doctors and our nurses to be there. But what happens when our heroes need help? Who helps them? Who comes to their aid? They are, after all, human beings. Mere mortals, and they fall victim to depression and anxiety. You know what? I'm going to say even more than the regular Joe and the regular Jan. Study after study has shown that those in emergency services and healthcare have a higher rate of depression and suicide than the rest of the population because of the things they see. And now what we're throwing at them is not just all this change, but we are throwing at them the need for them to isolate from their own families. In many cases, they're not living with their families. They're not seeing their kids. You know why? Because they're taking care of us. That's why. And that's why tonight I want to spread the word that we need to take care of them. And I want to send a message to any first responder or healthcare worker out there. You are not alone, and you should not remain alone throughout the program. There are websites here. There are crisis lines. I want you to use them. And I know you get the memos all the time and the emails, the peer-to-peer support. If you've never taken advantage of it, you know what? Maybe you need to. You are a mere mortal. So today we are going to dedicate this show I am thrilled to have a very knowledgeable panel joining me today from across the province. I'm going to start out in Hanover with George Hebblethwaite, who is the Deputy Chief of Hanover Police Service. Hello, George.
Good evening.
Hugh Doherty is joining me from Pickering, from his home in Pickering, but he is with Toronto Fire, District Chief with Toronto Fire, and has actually been on the front lines with mental health and peer-to-peer support for more than 3 decades. Hello, Hugh.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Good. And Miranda helps to head up just a fine example of a mental health peer-to-peer program in our paramedic system. She is joining us now from Middlesex, London, where she is the public education coordinator. Hello to you, Miranda.
Hi, Kevin.
All right, George, you know what? I'm going to get you to kick everything off here right now. Tell me a little bit about what you are trying to get across to your officers.
It's an interesting evolution over the time that I've been around, and obviously between the beard and the no hair, I've been around a while. But it's been an evolution in terms of people speaking up finally about how they are actually feeling. I mean, too often over the decades, officers and first responders of all kinds keep that kind of personal emotions inside of them, that struggle. And some of the things, as you said a few moments ago, some of the things that all first responders end up seeing, sometimes too often, it can wear on you. And I think you and Miranda might agree with me that many times it's not a singular incident that sets people down a bad path. It's the cumulative effect of things. And in policing, of course, the firefighters are always the good folk. That's what they tell me anyway. And so the officers are oftentimes the good folk, but in many, many instances, of course, we're not considered that way. But we still, of course, deal with situations, and it has an impact. And as you rightly said, and obviously we are human. But for the longest time, for the years that I've been around, and it's been 3 decades plus, early on it was the old be quiet, suck it up, oh, come on, shake it off. And I got to know a lot of officers over the years who got into some deep depressions and had some very serious difficulties with PTSD. And I managed to help a small handful. And at the same time, while helping them, I had the thoughts going through my head that, but for the grace of God, go I. Because we all experience these things. And for whatever reason, the luck of the draw, or at the time that all these things were happening, I was in a place where it didn't impact me deeply as it did other folks. Whatever the case may be, I've been very blessed.
Mm-hmm.
Have I been in funks? Have I been in very difficult places? Absolutely. I don't think a first service responder could say otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But there are folks. There's a close friend of mine right now who almost took his life last September, and I've been helping him through some things, and he's getting some good counseling now. But he was close to 30 years, and
wow.
It was just a build up, and he reached out a few days before he was going to do it, and it shocked a lot of us. He hit it well. But finally, because I think of where things have evolved, he found that last moment of courage to reach out for help. Had he been in this position 10, 15 years ago, I fear he would have taken his life.
I want to take a quick poll of the panel right now. Out of the 3 of you, how many have had people who were close to you take their own life?
Kevin, in my time in doing this work, I'm up to, unfortunately, about 15 of our members.
Gosh. Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
And it's as George talked about. You know, when I started, as I jokingly say, when we still had horses, but in the early '80s, you would never talk about this. You know, nobody would want to work with you if you talked about seeing a mental health professional. Mm-hmm. And, you know, over the years, especially within the fire services, we looked at some of the safety equipment we've got now. We looked at some of our physical fitness policies. The IFF has a wellness fitness initiative. It's on its 3rd revision. And most fire services now across Canada have been actively setting up mental health programs for their staff. And, you know, we talk about the need to be able to retire to enjoy your pension. It also includes having the ability to enjoy life and still be able to laugh.
Yeah. And that's it, right? It seems that it can be very, very dark, very, very closed in at the time. And it doesn't seem like there's any alternative. Miranda, do you think, are we getting the message to the rank and file effectively?
I know, like, looking especially over the last 5 years, never mind going back any further, but the last 5 years and the different changes that have been implemented. And in the past, there was a lot of suicidal ideation and a lot of isolation, and slowly opening up those communication lines and putting these practices in place. I know with our peer support team, especially, and trying to be proactive and finding different avenues to get that information out to the staff. Our staff have definitely been very receptive to that, and we're definitely growing together every day.
And I agree with what Miranda talks about to see that change. We have a lot of online programs. Our peer support team gets out into the fire halls, talks about, our programs. If we want to talk about smoking cessation, we want to talk about alcohol, drug abuse, we get that information out there. Again, our online stuff is done. We're 24/7. So all those things are critically important. The events with COVID-19 have created some challenges for us all, I'm sure.
Let's talk about that. So, George, what is affecting your officers the most when it comes to mental health around COVID?
It's the worry about taking something home to the family. That would be probably number one on the list. Number two, of course, would be their partners. We tend to be people that like to fix things. We are the fixers. We're not supposed to be the fixees. So, and very frustrated if you think that you're going to be the cause of a problem. And that is certainly number one here. And I know it's a very large family of police officers we have in this area. Our service and a number of others are very tight-knit. That seems to be the common thing. We have conference calls a few times a week with various police agencies, mental health units in general. Like we all are, I'm sure we're on conference calls a few times a week.
Can I just point out a comment that just came on? Some person named Tara said, "Thank you for being my hero, Dad."
Okay.
That's your daughter, I presume?
It is.
Yeah.
Hi, Tara.
How has this? Oh man, we almost got this old codger to have a little tear there. Hold on. All right. So tell me about the impact on her and the rest of your family, and from a personal note, George.
Yeah, well, she's very concerned. As a senior ranking officer, I don't do a lot of calls for service, but we are a small police service. So myself and the chief, we do go on calls for service. We handle investigations. We've had a very busy week. Some tragedies in the town here. Been very busy. I'm pulling some long hours, and I get a lot of phone calls and texts. What are you doing? Are you in the office? When are you coming home? So, yeah, it's a worry, and I know she worries. I tried to tell her that your old dad's going to take care of business properly.
And Hugh, you were telling me earlier, we were talking this afternoon, you were saying that there's actually a firefighter who actually is living in a trailer in his garage, or on his driveway, I should say.
Yeah. He had to go into quarantine for a period of time, and he was concerned, and so he had his trailer set up, and in his part, because he couldn't see, he had two kids. And his wife he couldn't stay in the house. And ironically, he had set up his trailer about 10 days earlier. We've had other members that have had to stay in hotel rooms to be in quarantine and isolation. And on top of, as George spoke about, the difference to our routines at work for all three of our services, we've had our home life has changed. George, with his daughter, I got two small grandkids, can't see them. My dad's 90, you go cut the lawn and you do the wave and you make sure he's okay. But all of our people and all those services are going through those same events. Mm-hmm. And you take a look at the family stuff, the home life, how we respond to calls. You respond to that car accident with people trapped. What we have is not the same as what we had 6 weeks ago, and how we address that and how we deal with that and what are we bringing home, those types of things. And then, firefighters don't like a lot of change. And within the last 6 or 8 weeks, a lot of our protocols have changed, and it has a huge impact just on the anxiety and the stress level.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about some members from your service, if we could, Miranda. Tell me about what you've heard about what is happening with them.
Yeah, I know, especially in the early weeks, there was a lot of increased anxiety about personal protective equipment and how our practice was going to be changing, and making sure that we have the right equipment. Policies and procedures were changing, and there was a lot of new information. Definitely, we saw an increase in anxiety in a lot of our staff, and as paramedics, we definitely train for infectious diseases and proper gear when we are providing patient care, but everything is definitely amplified during a global pandemic. So it's making sure that we have open lines of communication, that our staff are trusting the science of the decisions, making sure that they are protected. I know that our service, they implemented the half mask respirators, and that was a huge comfort for a lot of our paramedics. And just like was mentioned before, there's the frontline and at work pressures, but having family at home and kids at home and the homeschooling, and everyone is a lot more anxious, and you have to draw on your past resilience and accept that, yes, it is different, and things might be a little bit more out of control at home, and that's okay.
Okay. So we have we have most of the allied services represented here, with the exception of those in the hospitals. And so earlier I had a chance to speak with Catherine Hamilton. She is the chair of the Ontario Paramedic Association. She is a critical care RN, and you know what? I have to say that my daughter is an RN and pregnant. And so I have concerns as well. So I talked to her a little bit earlier about what concerns of nurses are and what they are like.
What's happening is the nurses are having to isolate from their family members. So some of them are self-isolating. They may not even be sleeping in the same homes. Children are having to be moved away to other family members' houses so that they can maintain the ability to take care of their patients, but also not infect their loved ones. And so families are finding themselves having to separate, which is a really, really, it's detrimental to mental health in general. I'm not sure if you've ever heard that the phrase, the opposite of addiction is connection. And with the lack of connection, that could create an environment where maladaptive coping mechanisms could come into play. So people could start, utilizing substances to numb and try to cope with some of the mental health issues that they might be experiencing. And they're already in the hospitals and out in the communities, given the nature of the type of the work that is done in healthcare, they're already facing instances where people are at their worst. They're having emergencies. Sometimes it's the scenes are very highly emotional. Sometimes the scenes are unsafe and unpredictable. And so to have to go into those environments causes enough stress already. Now add the COVID-19 situation to this, and it's just making it exponentially worse.
It definitely has an impact on everyone in the healthcare field, everyone that you eventually come into contact with in your day-to-day work. And we just put a comment on there about someone giving a shout out to the office of the chief coroner, where her daughter works, concerned and anxious about her safety. But we have the coroner, we have hydro, who you sometimes have to call on, transit buses when you have something going on as well. The peer-to-peer support isn't as strong in some of these cases, is it? I'll throw that to you, Hugh.
It's interesting that over my time in doing this work, it was just mainly a lot of police and fire and EMS a little later on. But you start to see some other organizations out there reaching out looking for some training. How does your team work? How do you get your members going? What do you do, and how do you do that type of stuff? And the peer-to-peer in the fire service is a phenomenal resource. To have the men and women reach out when they're struggling, and it can be anything, right? From elder care, and we take a look at what's going on with the COVID-19 in a lot of our nursing homes, and there's huge impacts to our people there, and that's the same I know for all three services. But just to have somebody that you can have a coffee with, just to chat some stuff out, and I know we're not allowed to hug each other, but there's lots of times over the years where somebody would phone and just, hey, I just need to vent. Can I meet you for a coffee? Short, maybe 2-3 hour discussion, have a nice hug, and they're good. Now we're trying to do that stuff virtually. Mm-hmm. We're trying to do it over the phone. But that one-to-one, knowing somebody's there just to talk to is a huge benefit. And to the, we'll see our transit workers. All those people having that ability to, if they don't have peer support, they need somebody to talk to.
I want to talk about Nova Scotia now. The horrible happenings in Nova Scotia, and I'm just going to bring a split screen up here if we could. There we go. It really brought it home, and in all of this now, horrible deaths, horrible tragedies. Of those deaths, one of them was a young police officer, Heidi Stevenson from the RCMP. And what are your officers thinking about that, George?
Oh, the thoughts and the feelings go from one extreme to the other. Of course, there's anger, upset, empathy, sympathy, frustration. Why? The questioning. And unfortunately, there's very few answers, and there may never be a lot of answers. Day by day, we are hearing a little bit more of what may have triggered this, but it is a bit of an example of the dangers that you face anywhere. I mean, that community where this happened, if I understood the media reports correctly, was about 100 people in terms of population. Mm-hmm. Is that correct, Kevin?
It is that, and that's not just 20% of the population directly impacted, but 100% of the population. Obviously, everybody knew everybody.
Exactly, and it can happen anywhere at any time. And things like that, when they do happen in the smaller communities in particular, it's you can no longer say, well, that's a big city problem. And for officers that working in rural areas like the RCMP do, like the Ontario Provincial Police do, like a lot of smaller police services do, like Hanover here, it again just puts to the fore that it can happen anywhere at any time. And it just adds to that level of vigilance that you need to have all the time. And you put that on top of what we're facing right now with the COVID issues, and it is an awful lot, and it can be a lot. And the biggest thing that seems to be helping is we're talking.
Yeah.
That's something we may not have done a decade or two ago.
And Hugh, you were telling me earlier again that you have some concerns about this event triggering some of your members.
Yeah, we had the Young Street van attack. We had the Danforth shooting, and some of our people have suffered greatly. And just even the anniversary the other night, we talked about it as a peer support team to get ourselves prepared and ready for some additional calls that may be coming in. Where we're going to, and we did try to brief ourselves how we're going to deal with that. And it's always something that we always try to be prepared for. I did some work down in Fredericton when they had the shootings down in Fredericton. And right after the Nova Scotia, I reached out to some of my contacts down there just to see how everybody was doing, let them know we're all thinking about them. And as George spoke about, just that little comment, we're here, we're thinking about you, we'll support you, is really, really critical and important.
Mm-hmm. Miranda, how are you trying? What would you like? And not just in Middlesex, London, but I mean, paramedics across the province are listening. What kind of support is available? Oh, I've lost your audio. Hold on. Let's try you again. I know we're having some microphone problems. Are you still there? Oh, I'm not sure. Okay. No, I think we've lost your audio. All right. I'm going to try and come back to you. I'm not sure if it's on mute or something has happened there. I'll get you to check it out. And if I hear you, I'm going to come back to you. All right. Sorry about that. Oh, I love my technical issues. Same question to you guys then. So what do we tell police officers and firefighters? And you know what? You can speak for paramedics as well. What kind of help is available? And if they're just, I don't know if I want to reach out. I don't know if I want to reach out. What do you want to say to them?
Well, I know for myself, being the old codger I can be.
Who called you that, George? I don't know who called you that.
Well, but I have been around a long time, and you can't help but experience different things. And I've been through, not on the grand scale of what's happened to in the last few days in Nova Scotia, but been around a lot of tragedies. So when officers are facing these things for the first time or the first couple of times, it's always good. And I think my cohorts here will agree that if you've walked in their shoes, then they tend to open up more. And if you can, if it's one thing to say I know how you feel, and there's another thing to say I know how you feel, and that's something we may not have expressed, been too quick to express again years ago. But in the last number of years, with the changes in the attitude and trying to get rid of that stigma, I've seen a shift, a positive shift in the direction of folks wanting to open up, wanting to talk, and that tends to lessen the impact of these types of events, at least as much as we can tell. And people being people, you can't be sure at all times or every time just how much you are getting the real problem to the fore, but we do the best we can, and we're a lot further ahead than what we were in the past. That's for sure.
Hugh, it strikes me that a lot of times, if a firefighter, if a paramedic, if a police officer needed counseling, it was because of a call. It was because of an incident, and the links to the possibility of developing PTSD. But right now, it's just day-to-day life that could be causing this anguish. And could that possibly make someone feel, I don't think I want to bother someone with this because it wasn't some dramatic call. I didn't have to carry a body out of a burning building or something like that.
And that was a concern we had when the COVID-19 started ramping up. And I'm sure all three services have done the same thing. We've got lots of notices out to our people. Our particular organization, our union president has done a couple town halls with all the membership. He's done it jointly with our senior administration and our fire chief. And additionally to doing those types of things, we've been, any way we can get stuff out on social media towards our members. We share our stuff collectively with anybody that wants, any other service that wants to use the information. How are we going to deal with isolation? How do we deal with our kids? How do we deal with the influx of all the media all the time at us? Where do we go to reach out? Continually, where do we go? On top of that, some of the things that we started, we had a regular AA meetings for some of our members. So we've now opened up, we've done that virtually. We've opened up that now for firefighters right across the province. And we went from once a month to once a week because of some of the challenges for our members that we're getting those types of support. Again, lots of stuff is on our internal website for training. We're doing lots of virtual meetings. We're setting up, we're having our union president sit down and do a chat with a psychologist on how to deal with some of the issues that are happening. We all love our wives, our spouses, and our significant others, but it's a change to our routines. In my personal life, my wife is now home for 2 weeks, and then she's into the office the other week. So, you have that stuff. You take a look at no different for medics and police officers. Our spouses or significant others would go to work. We'd come home. We'd watch our kids. And as Miranda spoke about, now we're into homeschooling. We have all those other things happening. Where do we go to chat? And how do we do that? And it's important that anybody out there that's starting to feel anxious or overwhelmed, reach out. Somebody will be there. There's lots of great organizations. If you don't have a peer support team that are willing to step out and help us all.
All right. Miranda, just going to quickly check in. Have we fixed your microphone problem? No. Oh, no. Okay. All right. I'm wondering, you know what? Just a second. I'm going to fix this. Hold on. What we'll do, hold on. I got a million tricks up my sleeve. Hold on. Just a second. Where is that? 495. Hold on. Let's see. Okay. Miranda. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm going to mute it.
All right. See, one way or the other, we're going to get you on the air. Thank you. So you know what? Pipe in here with what you were about to talk about, and I'll let you have your. Just going to hold on. We're just going to set up the thing permanently here. There's always a way to do something, to jury rig something. Okay, and I have to change this microphone now. Hold on. I got to change the setting to a. There. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. Say your piece, Miranda.
There we go. So with Middlesex London, we've really tried to make things as consistent as possible in this time, especially when things are so inconsistent, if that kind of makes sense. So there's definitely been a lot of obvious change with how our peer support are delivering their support. Just like the police and fire services taking away that face-to-face, one-on-one physical, and now moving to a more virtual approach. But we've also tried to open the lines even more and having weekly town hall discussions for all of our service members to participate in and ask their questions. And our peer support team has really taken that extra step to make sure that they're connecting with their platoons and with their staff a lot more often. I would say that's the biggest thing, is trying to find that consistency right now is really helping with all of the chaos and keeping it as controlled as possible so that people are still able to function.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, I'm going to start wrapping things up. George, I'm going to put the your final words on this and the messages to your police brothers and sisters across this province. What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that it's fine and good and healthy to talk about your feelings. It's something that again, it hasn't always been that way, but with the younger generation of officers that I've seen in the last number of years, it's something that we talk about. It's natural. It's just like talking about last night's hockey. Well, not last night, obviously. But just talking about something quite current. It's as easy as that, and that's very positive sign for going forward. It takes a lot of strength to come forward on these things, I would say, and the support is there. Speak to your brothers, speak to your sister officers. We're all one big family, and all of us would take a bullet for the other. So for goodness sakes, talk to us.
Wow. Very powerful. Hugh.
Yeah, and very similar to what George just spoke about. Anybody out there in any one of the three services, if you need some assistance, somebody to talk to, don't be afraid to reach out. Don't bottle it up. Keep it in. That filing cabinet's only going to take so many pieces of paper before we start to overflow. reach out. There will be people from either one of our services willing and able to sit down, chat, and help us through all these crazy times.
All right, and Miranda, I'm going to take your final words, but I'd also like you to address the families of first responders and healthcare workers out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with our allied professionals over there. But at the end of the day, after saying everything, we really want to encourage people, like, give yourself a break.
Yeah.
These are stressful, unprecedented times, and we're all doing the very best we can. And that's in our professional setting, and that's in our home setting. The routines are going to be off right now, and that's okay. It's a chaotic time, and we're just doing the very best that we can, and that's all that we can ask of ourselves.
That's so true, isn't it? It is just it is in the DNA of a first responder to go above and beyond, and they expect more maybe out of themselves and may not admit to having any weaknesses. And we want them all to know that you know what, you're only human. You're only human. I want to thank all of you, George and Hugh and Miranda, for joining me here tonight. And what's great is that what you three have done and what Catherine has done laid the groundwork. And you do all sorts of exercises, practicing for disasters and major incidents. But you have laid the groundwork so that we now have some pretty good systems in place of peer-to-peer support. Now we just need people to use them. So thank you very much for being with me tonight.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin, for putting this on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Oh. It's quite a conversation. It's such a great conversation. It's a conversation to have, and I do have to apologize because my dedication at the beginning of doing this show was it was going to be positive. It was going to be all positive, and we did talk about tragedy tonight, and we did talk about some things like suicide and things like that. But it's a conversation that needed to be had. The reason the show came about after a conversation with Susan Brooks. She works out of OPP West London, and she does a lot of peer-to-peer there and work on mental health. And so she had approached me and asked me to do this, and I was only more than happy to. So thank you, Susan, for doing that and for helping round up the panel tonight. So all the websites are here. All of the crisis lines are here. All you have to do is use them. And no one is going to think any less of you now. No one is going to think any less of you. And to the families out there, we use these websites as well. I know it's tough, and I know that, I'm thinking about that firefighter living in his driveway. Can't see his family. Can't really, interact with his family. So our thoughts, our heart go out to you. Every one of us are so thankful you were there at the other end of the line when we call 911 or when we go into emerge for whatever reason. We thank you for that. But we need you to take care of yourself. Because you're no good to us if you don't take care of yourself. I wanted to share something that I got last night. And so many times, you can do something like this, and is it worth the time and the effort of doing this? And so you get a note like this, and I honestly sat and I cried today. It was 3 sentences. Just wanted to let you know you saved my life today. This was addressed to me. Thank you for being an inspiration. You are so deeply appreciated. Hugs. And I did question the person because I wanted to make sure they were okay. And she had gone on to ask, I am now. Thank you for asking. But your videos really helped me to reach out for help to my husband and my family. I am forever grateful. So this woman had been living in the darkness. She had been living in darkness. And she opened a door. And she let a little light in. And today, she feels better than she did yesterday when everything seemed so dark. So don't sit in the darkness. Don't open that window. Just peek through the curtain a little bit. There are people who are there to help you. If there aren't family available, there are friends. If there's not friends, there's doctors. There's crisis lines. Reach out. Reach out. Please. I want to leave you with a smile, though. Where did we put? Oh, I know where it is. I think it's. This was seen on a sandwich board sign. So let's bring that up. People must not cough near you. They must cough far away. If you hear someone coughing, tell them to far cough. And on that note, I leave you. I say, take care of yourself and take care of each other.
COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't even have a snack. Hey, coronavirus, I want my life back. Well, hey, coronavirus, I want my life back. Well, hey, coronavirus, I want our life back.
Have a good one, everybody.